Sports Podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, which you guys can all find on Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, whichever you get your podcasting apps or platforms from. And speaking of my podcast, Barbershop Sports Talk, check out the latest episode. Like I said, you can find it on all those platforms, Apple, iTunes, Spotify, all that. I had Pat Leonard on, who covers the New York Giants for the New York Daily News. We talked about NBA superstars NFL quarterbacks becoming NBA superstars. So we dived into Deshaun Watson and a little bit of Russell Wilson. We talked about the NFL salary cap. We also got into Dak Prescott re-signing with the Cowboys and his deal and the no trade clause that Dak Prescott got with the Dallas Cowboys as well. And we talked about some Daniel Jones stuff with the New York Giants and some New York Giants stories at the end. And also even, I believe, we got into the Eagles versus Giants with when they pulled Hurts and put in that, I forget his one name, the third stringer, and people were saying that the Eagles tanked the game against the Washington football team, so the Giants were to make the playoffs. So we dived into all that. So check out that podcast. Also, thank you everybody who's tuning in via YouTube live stream, Twitter/Periscope, and Facebook Live. So here's what we have today. And by the way, everybody, happy St. Patty's Day. I hope people weren't drinking too much. So this is what we have today. Russell Wilson, there was a possible trade that was turned down by the Seattle Seahawks, the Chicago Bears. Deshaun Watson, there are some allegations that have been levied against him. There are also a couple of other reports about Deshaun Watson as well, about some teams he could go to. The Arizona Cardinals, they signed A.J. Green, and Meyers, Trevor Ariza was traded for Meyers Leonard, and I kind of want to get into that whole thing. So first, here's where I want to start with this. So Dan Patrick reported this on his radio show today, that the Seattle Seahawks and the Chicago Bears, they were talking about possible trades. And during one of those possible trade conversations, the deal that was offered, and I want to get this right, 3 first-round picks. So 3 first-round picks, 2 third-round picks, and 2 starters. So, and Dan Patrick didn't name the starters. He said that his source did not tell him who the 2 starters were. So we can assume those are 2 starting NFL caliber players, 3 first-round picks, and a couple of thirds. And then I thought about this because a lot of people were talking about this. And here's the thing. Is that really worth a star quarterback, an elite quarterback? Russell Wilson, to me, the 3 best quarterbacks in this league are Aaron Rodgers, Patrick Mahomes, and Russell Wilson, no matter what order you want to put them in. So to get rid of a guy like that for 3 first rounders, you don't know what these first rounders are going to be. You don't know what those third rounders are going to be. Either those starters, obviously Chicago, they were freaking 8-8, the 7th seed, and they got bounced out by New Orleans, so they can't be all that amazing unless you're getting a guy like Khalil Mack or Eddie Jackson or one of those guys. So where I'm at is and Pete Carroll's also said, does he really want to rebuild? Seattle needs Russ more than Russ needs Seattle. That's the big statement. I think Seattle looked at this a step back pragmatically, and said, hey, you know what? Our offense has been awful. Our offensive line has been great. Russell Wilson's been having to juke 3 guys out, make plays, and carry this offense. And we think we're going to just put in some random dude, and our team's so good. Like, the Legion of Boom isn't there anymore. Marshawn Lynch isn't there anymore. So I think it's really easy to say that, hey, we can win without Russ. We can have a game manager and win. But also considering how tough the NFC West is going to be anyway, best chance, put your faith in number 3. Put your faith in number 3. Like some people put their faith in Trace McSorley. Put your faith in number 3. Deshaun Watson, some disturbing allegations of sexual assault were filed against him. Also, if you guys want to read more about that story, you guys can look that up yourselves. But basically, Deshaun Watson he's discrediting the claim. He's saying that it was people who just want attention and they wanted money out of him. He said, nor have I or never will I mistreat a woman. I think these topics are always hard to talk about. But I do think even the Houston Texans, they said they were just aware of it. So this kind of came out of nowhere. So I hope this kind of gets figured out. And I also wonder if this could kind of slow down trade talk a little bit with other teams. Because let's say for some odd reason, I'm not saying, I don't know what happened in that situation, but let's say it comes out true. I'm not saying that it is, but let's say it comes out true. Does a team then want to take a risk on Deshaun Watson? Are they as likely to trade as many first-round picks? As I'm going to get to this, right? The 49ers and Broncos are looking at Deshaun. If you find out that there's some sexual assault allegations, potentially this could lead to court. Potentially he could lose some games. If you're Kyle Shanahan, you're going to be like, hey, we're still going to trade Nick Bosa for this guy. No, you're probably going to think about it and be like, okay, maybe Nick Bosa's off the table. So I think this is really going to be interesting in terms of how it impacts trade conversation and in terms of trade packages for Deshaun Watson. And speaking of the 49ers, I mentioned the Denver Broncos, those are 2 teams that Deshaun Watson reportedly wants to play for. At first, we kind of heard the New York Jets and we heard the Miami Dolphins. Now it looks like he has his eyes set on potentially the 49ers and Broncos, 2 teams that are historically well run. I think people have a lot of respect for Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch in this league as a GM and coach combination. For the San Francisco, they've been good. They've been to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. Same with the Denver. I mean, with John Elway's around, I don't think he's the lead executive now, but he's in another role. But Denver's been really good besides this last couple of years. But they've always been a really good, solid, fundamentally sound football team. And let's remember, they got Peyton Manning, and then they kind of extended their run a little bit. So I think Deshaun would do very well with both teams. And I think both these teams are teams that are more suited to win now, in particular San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan, in my mind, people who don't know this, I love Kyle Shanahan. I think he's one of the best offensive minds in all of football. To me, there's Josh McDaniels of the New England Patriots. There's Sean McVay of the Los Angeles Rams. There's Kyle Shanahan. There's Sean Payton. There's probably some other guys that I'm forgetting, and I apologize. But to me, those are kind of the 4 or 5 guys in this league that when they call offensive plays, it's just different. So I think having him with a Deshaun Watson, Kyle's never had a player of that caliber. Deshaun's more talented than Matt Ryan. Deshaun's more talented than RG3, a guy he was the OC of. Other times he was an OC in Cleveland. He had guys like Johnny Manziel who weren't talented at all. And he had Jimmy Garoppolo, guys like that. Like, he's never had a truly top 3, top 4, top 5 quarterback in the league that you can say, hey, we can build this whole offense around him. So I think it'd be really interesting to see what Kyle Shanahan can do with a Deshaun Watson. Also, another report about this, Texans expected to move QB despite denying interest. This was something that came from a reporter, I believe, who works for the Houston Chronicles, that the Texans are going to move him. Basically, all this stuff, they're not going to trade him. It's all coach speak. It's all BS. They're going to get rid of him. I tend to believe so, even with the sexual assault allegations that are going on, even with how tenuous and how ugly this is starting to get, when he's like, F you to the organization. I just don't know how you keep the guy. Like, in most jobs and professions, people always talk about this and compare sports professions. If you had an employee who basically told the boss, F you, I'm not working here anymore, you know what you do? You know what you do if you're the boss? You probably fire the guy. Like, you probably fire the guy. If you come into your work, you basically say, I'm not going, I'm doing all this stuff. You fire the guy. You get him out there. You get him out the room, because it's toxic to the environment. That's not how you run a good business. You can't have toxic people in the environment. What the Patriots have always done is they put personality, they put fit, they put system, they put team chemistry over necessarily the talent of the player. I think that's eventually, and Nick Caserio, a Patriots guy, quote unquote, and a John Carroll guy, by the way, that's what you're going to have to do, because you can't have a toxic guy. So I think eventually, end all be all, going to have to get rid of Deshaun Watson. Arizona Cardinals, they sign A.J. Green, former Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver, on a 1-year, $8 million deal. J.J. Watt was really ecstatic about this on Twitter. I love this move. Larry Fitzgerald, he's gone. He's retired. So you're going to have DeAndre Hopkins, you're going to have Kenyon Drake, and you're going to have A.J. Green. I think if A.J. Green gets back, he can still be maybe a top 15 wide receiver. I thought at the end he couldn't run a little bit, but maybe he'll be revigorated. Was a good route runner. You can maybe play him in the slot a little bit, do a couple different things with them. So I think this can help A.J. Green out immensely. Also, he's never played with a quarterback the caliber of Kyler Murray. He's always played with the Andy Daltons of the world, the mediocre guys. He's played with the chicken breasts, not the filet mignon, right? So I think this will be perfect for A.J. Green. Hopefully he can stay healthy. That's another concern with both him and J.J. Watt. But if both those guys are veterans and they can able to bring their leadership to the defensive line room and the wide receivers room and even the offensive unit and the defensive unit respectively, I think the Cardinals are going to be a player in the NFC West. They are going to be something to behold and something to watch out for. Now, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're bringing back their whole squad, man. Shaq Barrett resigns. They had Levante Davis. He resigns. Rob Gronkowski resigns. They put Chris Godwin on the franchise tag, and I was thinking about this. This is the Tom Brady effect. Tom Brady has a unique ability that he makes people believe in him. You want to play for Tom Brady. You want to believe in Tom Brady. And I think it's no coincidence that a guy like Levante Davis is like, you know what? Let me take a little bit less on the market. Let me come back to Tampa. A guy like Shaq Barrett's like, you know what? Let me take a little bit less. Let me stay in Tampa. A guy like Chris Godwin. I don't believe Chris Godwin. I forget the Bears receiver's name, but he made a huge stink about when he was put on the franchise tag. We know players don't like being put on the tag, but we haven't really heard anything from Chris Godwin, at least to my knowledge. People correct me if I'm wrong, but we haven't heard anything from Chris Godwin. I think that's the leadership. That's the stability. That's the impact Tom Brady brings to your locker room, where it's like, hey, this guy's the GOAT. He's taking a little bit of less. Why can't I take a little bit less? Why am I complaining? This guy never complains. He's always here. He does the right thing. He works. I think the biggest thing about Brady, even beyond his skill level, and his skill level is immense, it's amazing, it's his leadership. It's the standard. He makes people better than they are themselves. Like, they play better when they're with him. You believe in him. You want to follow him. And that's a powerful attribute. That's a powerful thing to have. And I don't know if a lot of people have that leadership ability. I don't know if people always want to follow Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if people always want to follow, and you can mention like, Peyton Manning, follow some of these guys, but you want to go to war with Tom Brady. He makes you believe anything is possible. If you can believe, like, that's half the battle. So lastly, Trevor Ariza was traded for Meyers Leonard, and as I was looking at this report, one of the things that were said was Meyers Leonard won't be joining the Thunder. His contract was just a vehicle to make the deal work, and for OKC to extract a little bit of value out of Ariza. Also, OKC may be able to use Leonard's contract again in the future, in another future deal before the deadline. So. For those of you who don't know, he said some anti-Semitic things, some very inappropriate things. He used a word that is very inappropriate that I can't say on this program about Jewish people. If you don't know what that is, you guys can go look that up yourselves. But then after that, the Heat suspended him indefinitely. I don't think he was allowed to come. And I don't know if they possibly could have traded him no matter what. He's not a great player. But then the fact that he's traded right after this happens, and now it looks like he's not suiting up for OKC at all. I'm kind of like, is Meyers Leonard going to get blackballed a little bit? Is he not going to be able to play? Because I think we saw the horrific things that happened to the Asian American community today with the shootings. And it's kind of like in this league, we know how hyper aware and sensitive the NBA is. Is it possible Meyers Leonard, especially he's not that great? Could Meyers Leonard be off the job? That's the thing I'm wondering about, and I think that's something to just follow ever so closely and ever so slightly. And that's all we have for this edition of Outside the Shop. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Daryl Lane. I post clips from my podcast. I also post the little draft stuff that I've been doing, those 1-2 minute videos about prospects. And this program goes up on there as well. And share this on whichever platform you're listening to. Have a great day, everybody, and God